Hey everyone, we've got our second week. It feels like it's not the second week, but I guess it's because we missed last week. And I guess I don't know if you guys feel like we crammed 2 weeks into 1 week the first week. So I feel like we're far farther down the pipe than this. But maybe it is just because I feel like when you read a book that's super impactful, I feel like it just takes you mentally down the road further. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. Does anyone have any big takeaways so far or things that maybe have come up in the last little while that pertain to the book that you're like, oh, hold on, and it's kind of changed your thought process or um affected situations in a positive way?
Hey, I'm just walking my dog, so I'll probably have to turn it off here pretty soon. But I will say it confirmed, of course, again, somebody talks about the school system and how why it was originally, came to be. And uh, you know, my heart doesn't hurt so much about this because I've had to, I went through process of this, but I just remember when my kid, especially my youngest or my oldest Josiah, and how in kindergarten the poor guy could not sit, smart as a whip. And I was just on him, like, why can't you do this? He's in kindergarten, because you're trying to fit this kid into a mold and you're upset with him. And I had to apologize to him. I remember he was a little bit older. I'm like, I'm sorry, Joe. I'm really sorry that your mom was so bent on having you be something that you were not designed to be, right?
Mm.
And look at him now. He's in Bible school and he can sit in class and he can do what he wants to, right? But man, like, so of course, I'm sure the rest of you feel the same way that the school system is, we know it was designed to have the input or to have a greater output of people who just work and aren't creative, right? And for anybody who's worked in a school, Leona being on here, we saw that on a daily basis. And it's like so much crushing of spirits a lot of the time. I'm not pooping all of school, but do you know what I mean? Anyways.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Jimmy's ready to dive into chapter two. She's already on the road to chapter two. That's awesome. I definitely will say that I think that it has made me more aware of the gaps. Has anyone kind of gotten that more of the awareness where you stop yourself and you're like, hang on a second, I'm totally operating from the gap. I'm not operating from the game.
I
I
did.
apologize. Are we on chapter 1 or chapter 2?
We're on chapter 2, sorry. And Janelle
Okay.
we're just doing a quick recap on the intro
okay.
in chapter 1. It's
I
okay.
apologize.
It's okay. You're good.
I
You're
apologize.
fine. You're already there. Sorry, Janelle, go ahead.
I found myself really trying to focus more on when I changing my mindset from when I found myself in the gap. And it was kind of the sort of the background to the reel that I did.
Yeah.
Where I was steaming bridal dresses. And normally that's my least favorite job. The dresses are beautiful. I love playing with pretty dresses, but steaming all day, you get hot.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. And you're trying and you're steaming 8 layers of chiffon and lace, and it takes a long time. And so then I was like, okay, wait, this is gap thinking. How can I change that? So I decided to pray for each individual that will be trying on the dress and or purchasing the dress, and saying, God, just please use this. And the time went by so fast.
That's awesome. I loved that reel. I thought that was just so brilliant. And it was I think that really spoke to a lot of people. And I affirm what you did. And I so appreciate that you shared that with the world, because again, guys, this is not just for us. When we learn this stuff and we share how it's affecting our lives, it'll be a domino effect. Yeah, Linda.
Yeah, it spoke to me, Janelle, what you said, because I hate ironing shirts and I had some good shirts to iron. So I got them done and did some praying over the man that's going to be wearing them. So thanks.
I'm sure that that man really appreciated that too.
Well, he needed the shirts.
I meant the prayer, but yeah, the shirts too. Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome. Does anybody else have anything else that they want to share from like life experience, focusing on the gap and the gain for the past 2 weeks since we've been here? If not, we will embark on chapter 2. If you think of something, you can pop it in the chat. You're more than welcome. All right. Be self-determined. Define your own success criteria, chapter 2. Yeah. I really, of course, they start talking about kids who are waiting to get into university and be picked for things and all of the, and I really related to that. Not necessarily that that's my son's specific, that's my son's specific space right now, but I know that there's a lot of kids that I've sort of had my eyes open to right now that are going through this, where they are waiting on being chosen. And it's like, that is their determiner of success. One of my son's friends was sitting in this, like, the best thing I can use, the best word I can use to explain this is like purgatory, just sort of waiting because she hadn't heard back from education yet to get into school, where everybody else had heard and was hearing and was making plans and whatever. And her, where she went into her back, like her profile or whatever, to check on the status of her application, it had said decided, but they hadn't told her. So she's like, I don't even know what to do right now. Right. And so how can you even measure your success when you are literally hanging in the balance of somebody else's choices? I love this here. Progress must be concrete. A sense that we're making progress towards our goals makes us happy, but to truly get the feeling of progress, we need to base it on concrete facts. When we set goals, we must be specific so we know when they're accomplished. Usually a number was reached or an event took place. There's so much we could say on this. There's so much we could say on this. And I feel like we have said lots on it too. I feel like we've said a ton on the idea that if you don't know what your goals are, or you have like sort of like a false, or sorry, we talked about this last time, where you're always moving the marker. We can never be clear on whether we've reached success or not. How many of you, I just want to know, because I think I'm looking around, most people here, maybe not everybody, but most people here have reached the rank of silver in Plexus. How many people here reached silver and were excited for like about this long, and you were like, okay, but I'm not this. Oh yeah, but I'm not like so-and-so. Oh yeah, but that's just, I'm not really doing a business because I've only, does anyone relate to that? That feeling where all of a sudden you reach the success and you're like, hey, the streamers go off, and before they've even landed on the floor, you're already like, you're already going, but it's not good enough. Teresa, she relates. Audrey, yeah. Janelle's like, yep, me. And I mean, sometimes that fuels us, right? Depends on who you are. You're like, okay, no, I'm just gonna keep going. Like, where's our next stop? How do we keep going? And some of us were just totally clueless, and we're like, oh, silver, that's great. Let's move along, right? And so I think what's really, really important that we're taking away from this at this point is, how can we stay in a healthy space for setting goals for ourselves, for achieving them, allowing ourselves to celebrate that, and be content with the work that we've done. This is that fine tension, being happy and content with the work that we've done, and yet still being encouraged to go for more. I'd love to talk about that for just a couple seconds.
Hey, Janelle.
Yeah.
I took a screenshot so I could go back to this, but I think I don't know what page is this. Oh shoot, it doesn't tell me. When Zig Ziglar said it well, your input determines your outlook, your outlook determines your output, and your output determines your future. And then he goes on, the more you subtly influenced by externals, the more in the gap you'll be, the more you'll measure yourself against ideals, the less you'll be self-determined. And I thought, I've been there where I got to something and I was proud of myself. And then I went and looked online or, on Facebook to see where else, oh, what? Like, and it's a brief moment now. It's more brief than it, right? But I think at the beginning, right? Oh, look I got to this. I'm so proud. And I dashed all that moment by looking around to see where somebody else got. I have no clue what their life is. I have no clue what goes on, right? And why they got to that. Why, but why do we do that? I love Plexus for the fact that we do really, this is not corporate America where everybody is just, backbiting and being mean to each other. People support each other. They, woohoo, you did, oh God, you got two, woohoo, right? But like we are our worst enemy so many times.
Yeah, we totally can be. Does anyone else have thoughts on that? Where, if you guys are looking for where Jimmy is, I think that page 38 is where she was talking about that, but it's all under the same thought process, right?
I actually love to talk about the very beginning where it talks about being mixed. And that probably was the most impactful message for me in this chapter, because it's that whole piece of feeling worthy to be picked or feeling worthy to choosing opinion. And I realized that I went to university, I waited for other people to invite me, waiting for other people to pick, waited for somebody else to even say hi first. In many, many ways, it's kind of a tell where we're at. And I see it now in my Plexus business as well, waiting for someone else to send the message because they saw a post, waiting for someone else to pick instead of reaching out and doing the picking by sending the message, by doing the insight, by doing the sharing. And I know it seems like a really basic concept, but I think it really is that worthy to.
Oh, that's so valuable, Sherry. I really appreciate that awareness. And, as you were talking about not waiting for someone to pick you by them sending a message because they saw a post, I started thinking, but maybe those people are waiting for us to pick them. How many of us now, this one I have to ask, because this one always floors me. How many of you guys have ever had someone send you a message after you've messaged them and asked them like, hey, I want to talk to you about your health journey or whatever. I know Sherry's had this happen. And they're like, I was wondering when you were going to message me. And you're like, well, how on earth did I know I was supposed to? How many people that are out there? I didn't know you were waiting, right? And what Sherry said is true. People are waiting to be picked. And sometimes sorry, go ahead, Sherry. She had a light bulb.
I actually had that happen in terms of someone who I invited to share, and they're like, I wondered if you never asked me to share. And I think that they were waiting for me to see them as worthy. And that really blew me away. Oh my word,
I just wonder, like, how many times we miss things because we feel like we tell ourselves the story that if we are messaging people, they're going to be bothered, or any of those things, right? And then you realize that there are actually people that are out there waiting
An emerald.
for,
And
oh, sorry, Jimmy, you just cut in now, mid sentence.
oh, sorry. Yeah, I've had that experience. I think it was when I was going for emerald, and it was my cousin. And when I did send her a message, because I was going for a big rain cup, and I was like, who can I ask? Who can I ask? Right. And when I sent her a message and I called her, she's like, I've been watching you. I was wondering when you were going to ask me. I was like, oh, for reals? Like, so it is really true. Like, people know what you're doing. Like, they're not stupid if they've been watching you. Why, where, like, it's a disservice to us to just sit back and not ask them that question. What's the worst, right? What's the worst? I guess they can block you from social media, but then, wow, that's kind of, like, so yeah, totally. I agree with Sherry.
Yeah. And it is all the stories that we tell ourselves, right? And people can have interesting stories they tell themselves. I know Leona had said that she's had that happen, but only in a negative way. I've had that happen too. And that's nice. That's great for them. They can sit there and catastrophize all day long. I don't need to be part of the catastrophe. I'm just offering the coffee. So it's all good, right? Like, but we do need to put ourselves in that position of engaging in that picking. But I really like that awareness. So thanks, Sherry, for that. So the questions that are on page 34 that I think are really, really good to consider, and not even like, we don't even need to really discuss them, but I think that the awareness is really great. The first question is, what are the reference points you measure yourself against? Why did you choose those particular reference points? And how do you define and measure success for yourself? And I think especially that last one that we kind of started talking about in the beginning, right? How do you define and measure success for yourself is really, really important. Because if you have no idea, how are you ever going to know that you're getting there? Or if you need to make adjustments or any of those things. I think it's interesting that he talked a bit about, and when I listen to the audio and I read the book at the same time, I also mess up what was just the conversation, what was actually the text in the book. So if you're listening to audio, or if you're not listening to audio, there's a piece at the end that is a conversation between the authors, which is very, very valuable. And they're talking about comparison on social media and how we can really get stuck with, opening up our social media and comparing ourselves. And, when I started thinking about that, I was like, we use Diamond documentaries to encourage us and each other. How many of you guys have ever watched Diamond documentaries? Because I know we've got some new people. Okay, if you have never watched any, you can actually find them in the Plexus Go app, and I will find the pathway and send it in the group chat, because off the top of my head, I cannot think of how to get there, but I know that it's in there. And I love that we have that access right at the tips of our fingers. But then I started thinking about how, depending on if you're in the Gap or if you're in the Gain, you can watch those and have a very different experience. And I want to say that the whole purpose of having those is not to show you what you don't have in a way that is going to make you feel less than. The whole purpose is to show you what's possible in different people's walks of life. There are people that are doing this business that are thriving and living a life that is not something that I align with. And that's fine, because I am not the only person in the world that needs this business and needs success in this business. But there's so many of them out there. So many of them. I'd love to hear just from you guys. Is there a diamond documentary that you have watched that has been particularly impactful for your vision on, and then that aligns, or maybe doesn't align, but still inspires you, to kind of be like, hey, yeah, that's success. That's a measure of success that I would adopt. Is there one that you guys can think of?
I just watched Brooke Hemingway's Diamond documentary yesterday, actually, before I sent it off to a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I just love how, like, I just love her carefree way of living, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. That's the one that I was really attracted to. I just love the way she is and how caring she is, and she doesn't care what other people think about her, and she just does the things she needs to do to be successful for her family.
Mm-hmm.
That's the courage that I need to get to. That's the point I need to get to, where I just like, I'm gonna do it because I need to do it and I want to do it, and that's where I want to be.
Yeah. I love that. I'm so glad that you found one that just aligned with your heart. That was Brooke Hemingway. If you guys are, I'm making a list. I'll put the list, I'll compile the list and put it in the chat so that if you guys haven't watched them. I know for me, one of the ones that was always really impactful for me was, and it's really old now because I've watched these kids grow up, which I think is super funny, but Bridget Ryan's Diamond documentary. They have, I think now they have 9. Do they have 9 kids? I think they have 9 now. Maybe it's 7. I don't remember. Anyway, but back then her daughters were young, like 8, 7, 9, anywhere in there. And one of the reasons that it was so impactful for me was their emotion, her kids' emotion, about how proud they were of their mom and how thankful they were for the work that she had done. These little girls are like, they're little and they're crying because of how much they love their mom and how proud they are of her. And I remember thinking initially when I watched it, that is how I want to run my business. I do not ever want to get to this point of my business and have my family be so full of resentment because I have not balanced my business and my life well. I want my family to honestly be able to say that they love what we do as a family and that they're so proud. I don't want them to be resentful. And so that's been like a package for me, right? Yeah, that one was Bridget Ryan. Like oldie goldie, oldie. So Jimmy and Leona both say it's Eva's. Janelle said Amber Miller and Emily Gibson. So Janelle, can you tell us what is it about Amber Miller and Emily Gibson's? Because those are 2 very different diamond docs. Or can you think of why? Or you just know that they were impactful?
I think one of the main things that I liked about those ones, and that because I follow them on Instagram as well. And I think one thing I liked that impacted me the most was that they were so different. And so it kind of was like, yeah, this could be for me, because my story would probably be completely different from theirs as well. And I just kind of like the carefree, kind of the fun personalities of each of them that come out as well.
Yeah. And it's true. It shows you that they're real people, right? So focusing back on this idea, I'll put this list of people in here if you guys haven't watched them. Maybe that'll get to be on your list for You know what, which one I'm really excited to have come out? I don't think that, oh, she did film it. My friend Bridget Kroll. That one will be like the best. Although I love Marge's too, sorry. I'll just start giving, like, spouting out all of these different ones, but Marge Martin's one is probably the most different diamond documentary that they've ever done. And that was Scotty had said that when he filmed it. He's like, this is different than anything we've ever done. Because it talks a lot about history, about her family history, and how they are where they are, why they are where they are. But anyway, we digress just a little bit. So let's talk about this whole concept of becoming self-determined. And it says, to be free, you must be self-determined, which is to say that you must be able to control your own destiny in your own interests. And that's the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. We're getting deep. You guys didn't know that today. We're getting into philosophy. So when he says in the middle of this page, it starts talking about being self-determined and what it means, right? Being self-determined means that you've made yourself the reference point rather than measuring yourself against something external. Being self-determined means you're intrinsically, not extrinsically motivated. This doesn't mean you don't use externals as measurables, but you yourself choose those goals for yourself. Being self-determined means that you've decided what success means to you, and you don't need anyone else's permission for what you want for yourself. You don't need to apologize for what you want. So that clarity on what it means to be self-determined. Once you look at that, or maybe I should ask this, before you read this, would you say you were a self-determined person? I would have said that I was as well. But then when I really break down all of these pieces, I go, okay, you know, I feel like I'm lacking clarity in a few areas to really embrace the kind of the totality of becoming self-determined. It says it means you're clear on why you want what you want. It means you're no longer competing with anyone else. And then it says being in the gain leads to self-determination. Any thoughts on any of that?
Hi, sorry, I apologize. I'm just trying to get ready. Yeah, I haven't had time to go over some of those questions, but I think I would classify myself as fairly self-determined, but also going through the different stages and ages of my life. I can definitely tell you there were times where my self-determination got off course because of what somebody else said, or something comes up. You know, in your spirit at the time, you didn't really know how to deal with it, but in your spirit, you just like, this, I don't think this is for me. But because the outside world tells you that this is the path you should go, for instance, raising your children. When I first had my boys, I made some pretty different choices than people. I didn't vaccinate them. And where did that come from? To be honest, before the internet, yes, you know, I'm old person, but you know, we didn't have Google. I don't know, you know, it was just one of those things where we felt, I read books, I went to naturopath, and it was like one of those things. But it, you know, I remember at one point almost got off that path because I had a nurse tell me your child's gonna die. Literally, like at church, your baby's gonna die. Like straight up, no mixing. And it was like, oh my goodness, right? And so I've had times where now as I've aged, you kind of have a better idea of what you're the path you feel God is calling you to. And so I don't know if that's self-determined or it's just what the Lord is showing you, right? Anyways, I think I got off there a little bit.
No, you're
But-
totally, I'm totally following
there?
where you're going. I'm totally there.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
talking about how like you can become, and they talk about page 39, you can become externally determined and extrinsically motivated. You lose your own identity, you lose your compass, you're chasing the wrong ideals, which will be a continual gap race to nowhere. And it's not aligning with your values, right? You start to use that, some of those external pieces that sort of throw you off course and out of alignment with those core values. Yeah, for sure. He was talking about this, and they were talking about suicide and addiction rates, and just using like social media as kind of the reason for that, right? If you're always looking to the outside. But actually on the extras at the end of the chapter, he was sharing about how he is, I think he said he was 4 years of not watching television. And I found that really interesting because he said, well, now, you know, we just had gone away for the summer. We hadn't watched TV in a couple weeks. And I thought, well, I wonder how long I can do this. And so as time progressed, he realized that he was being less influenced by things outside of where he put his values, commercials, different promos for different things, right? I think his example was, I have people that are trying to make me save the world on their terms and not on mine. So, right, you start to feel guilt for things that aren't necessarily, not that I don't love the dolphins or the sea turtles or the, you know, whatever, but if God has aligned my heart with a purpose and this is where I'm supposed to be going down, and all of a sudden I get yanked in a different direction because emotionally the music is so perfect to try to like swing me this way, and there's pictures of sad turtles and there's all of the things. No shade to people whose life plan is to save turtles. I love that for you, but that's not me. And that's what he's saying, is he's saying he is able to keep those main things the main things without being that extrinsically motivated. Yeah, Sharon, I knew something was bubbling in your brain.
It's bubbling away, it's brewing. I think that the more that we know what motivates us and are okay with that and do so unapologetically, the more we give other people freedom to do the same and to make very different choices and have very different thoughts and have stuff that motivates them, that it's not what motivates me, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Right? It just takes that comparison away. Right. And of course it's like a process of constantly needing to reset and come back to that. But you know, that's something I think in my own life that I can see is the more I have become self-determined, the more I allow other people to become self-determined.
Mm-hmm. Sharon,
and I'm totally okay with it.
Do you ever find that makes some people uncomfortable?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's our society is all based on groups, right? And ideologies, and this club over here doesn't like that club over here. It's ridiculous, really.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And when you buck that, people don't understand it, but it's refreshing. They like it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I want
So
to jump off of Sharon's comment about that. I'd just like to express that as we go through the life, we may become more and less self-determined. I remember having self-determined, no matter what the outside world thinks. I remember raising kids and having very clear values, very clear identity, very clear purpose. I also remember when the kids left home, and it was like I've been so immersed in that purpose, that pleasure, that goal, that it was like I had to find myself again. What did I actually want? Go on, but I want I was under all the things that I had wanted and felt that was my story for myself and how I wanted to. And so instead then of above, I like it's really interesting as go through this like your sense of step of what really is my why now, what really is my goal now, what really is my goal. And as I'm self-determined, if other people feel uncomfortable, why is that a bad thing?
Mhm.
I can't make anyone else feel any way at all. I can't make anyone else happy. I can't make that. I can only I am and allow them their
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah, Sharon, go ahead.
I didn't catch all of what you said, Sherry, but it's I caught lots of it. But I think some of it too is being so okay with our own choices and being self-determined that nobody has to be okay with us and make the same choices that we are making, right? It's totally okay. Right. And you can pick any hot button issue or like pretty mild issue, and you can see that, right? Stay-at-home mom, working mom, right? Combination of both mom, right? All of that stuff. You could pick anything where you can see people get into their camps and their clubs and they are like snide and I mean, and just don't play.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like people who don't like network marketers.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Good. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. So I think from there, it's interesting to entertain these questions, the question of, I know I'm being successful when, right? Just kind of like what Sherry was saying. You need to know where your values are, what your goals are, where your direction is. And when you're really clear on that, people can either come along or hang out, wave at you from the sidelines, or, if they have to check out, I guess they have to check out. Like it's okay. But it is that knowing that you are in alignment with where you're going. That's really, really important. And I thought that this was so interesting. So he asked, this is Dean Jackson, and they're talking about this whole idea of I'll be successful when versus I know I'm being successful, right? We can often have this ideal that we set. We're like, well, I'll be successful when, right? We talked about that last week, like the hedonic treadmill, the idea that we keep on moving that horizon. But if we start to focus on, I know I'm being successful when I know I'm being successful when, not I'll be successful when, right? And so his 10 items, and they're going to be different from yours. And so it would be very interesting for you guys to do this exercise to, I love that. Jimmy, I think meant to say when I get chickens, but she actually said when I chickens, which I think is perfect. I think that I am being successful when I chickens too. I love that. But that's one of those things, right? Like when I get chickens, I am being successful, right? When we are producing some of our own stuff that we can use in our home and we know where it came from. That's a huge thing, especially right now, right? Some of the ones that he says, I can wake up every day and ask, what would I like to do today? That one for me is a huge measure of success. When I am the one that gets to decide what I am doing today, what I get to do, not what I have to do, what I get to do today, right? I mean, there's always going to be those things that you're like, there is always going to be a task, but like Janelle said, we can change our thinking from gap thinking to gain thinking, and it can all change. Janelle and Linda are tag teaming on that one. And his other one, my passive revenue exceeds my lifestyle needs. I can live anywhere in the world I choose. I knew Sharon's eyebrows would go up on that one. We may have to have a long conversation on that one. I'm working on projects that excite me and allow me to do my best work. I can disappear for several months with no effect on my income. This one's good. There are no whiny people in my life. I'm not sure as a parent we ever get to absolve ourselves from that, but perhaps we can make an exception for those that are genetically attached to you by birth. Yeah. I wear my watch for curiosity only. I thought that was interesting. I have no time obligations or deadlines. I wear whatever I want all the time, and I can quit anytime. So I don't know if any of those resonated with you. There were a few of them that resonated with me, but if you haven't taken the time to do a list of things that describe, I know I'm being successful when, I would encourage you to. Does anyone have any ones that they have thought of that are alternate from this list that they would be okay with sharing for their own life? Yes, Janelle.
One of the ones I put on my list is, I know I'm being successful when I am comfortable with downtime.
Ooh. Tell us more.
Because I've always leaned into being busy. Being busy, then I don't have to think about other things. I'm just doing. And I'm really trying harder to find those moments, because for my health and just for my relationship health and things like that, I need to take those downtimes. And I need to be okay with it. And it's not that I'm being lazy. It's not that I'm just not working hard, but it's finding that balance.
Yeah. We can get caught up in that busy being a, what was the word? Actually, Janelle, I sent it to Kelly because we were talking about this the other day. And now I can't remember what the word was that I sent him. Buffering. It's almost like busy becomes a buffer. So you don't actually have to spend time in assessment. Yep. That's so good. Being okay in the downtime. That was actually something that he had shared, talking about, his no TV time, was that then he had been able to read so many more books that were specifically for his interest, and he had more value to give with his circle, and his circle became more aligned with his like personal alignment, right? And he said most of the people I hang out with now are entrepreneurs because we all have a ton in common, because if you're an entrepreneur, there are specifics that really do like align, right? And so he was able to offer more rather than just doing the buffer thing. And yeah. Anyone else? Oh, Sherry said downtime with no justification required. Yeah. Yep. I'm all for that.
I think
Trisha.
one on my list would be to be able to give freely. And in that also, like, I don't want to become, like, these things are all great, but I also want to make sure that in my heart, I am still in a servant role. And so that's really important, is to be able to have the freedom to give and serve freely. That would be one of my things.
I love that. Yeah.
I would say in my life, I really struggle with, like, my in-laws are very old school. We did this when we were kids and we didn't die and all that kind of stuff. But when I have 4 girls myself, and I feel like I'm being successful when I'm working on their health and not listening to their judgments. Like, I have a daughter that has dairy allergies and all that kind of stuff. So to be able to take care of that and follow through with that and make sure she's not eating that when she's around them and all that, that makes me feel successful, because I'm doing it for my kids, making sure my kids get what they need in order to survive in life and not just to get by.
Yeah. I love that. Awesome. Sometimes it's hard to advocate for your kids' health when people don't understand. So yeah, we hear you. Totally hear you. Anyone else want to share? If not, I would love to just encourage you guys to spend some time thinking about this. Like, I do the time on this. You are being successful when. So going forward to 45, he starts talking about Lee Brower, who's a gratitude expert. I want to be a gratitude expert. Did anybody else read that? And you're like, hang on a second. I think that being a gratitude expert would be a really awesome thing. That would be amazing. His filtering questions, they say, here are Lee's 6 filtering questions, which also act as his personal success criteria. I really appreciate these. And I do some of these personally, just maybe probably modified a little bit, but I've started asking, especially this first one, is this opportunity, person, expense, adventure, experience, relationship, commitment, etc., aligned with my values? If this is not aligned with my values, then it is a hard stop and we don't need to ask any more questions. It just is. There are some things that get caught in that filter though, that you're like, oh, it's not aligned with my values, but maybe it's been habit, or maybe it's been, like Teresa was saying, maybe it's generational. Maybe there's pieces in it that are hard to move that and just leave that there. So that may need some more chewing. But the idea that if it is not aligned with my values, then it goes no further. The second question is, will this opportunity, etc., take advantage of my unique ability and make me even stronger? Will it lengthen my stride? It was interesting. I was watching a short video, not one of the long podcast ones, but a short video by Jackie Hill Perry this week. And she's talking about how to make good decisions. I think I might have even shared this one, but how to make good decisions. And it was talking specifically from a biblical perspective, but going down that road was if this is where your value system is, and you're trying to make a decision, but you feel like you're not really getting a whole lot from the Lord, or there's really nothing in the Bible that talks about that specific decision, how can you know? Well, she talks about how you can start asking yourself, is this going to bring me closer or further away from the Lord? Is pursuing this going to elicit growth of fruits of the Spirit in my life, or is it not? And so you can parallel any decision with the Bible depending on whether or not it is going to elicit biblical traits or pull you closer to the Lord, or is it not? Is it, do I buy the pink shoes or the purple shoes? That decision is probably not going to come up on that. But I thought it was really interesting. But yeah, will this take advantage of my unique ability and make me even stronger? And then he goes on, will this opportunity benefit mankind? Does this make sense financially? Is this transactional or transformational? I feel like that question we have encountered in other book studies. That's interesting. In other words, is this a standalone opportunity or a gateway opportunity? If I say yes to this opportunity, then what must I say no to? And I think that is one of those things that we often sweep under the carpet. Sherry says, would I buy the shoes at all? The question is, why wouldn't I buy both? Right, Sherry? Depends on where. And Linda's like, yep. I know Sherry. Sometimes she does buy both. It's great. But if I say yes to this opportunity, then what must I say no to? And I think as women, we are often so, Sherry says it could be, it might align. We are often so used to running with our hands overflowing. Just be like, yep, just throw another thing on. It's okay. you know, I remember when I had littles, 3 under 3, it just all seemed like a lost cause anyway. And it was like, sure, why does it matter? It's all on fire anyway. We'll just add another thing. It doesn't, how much worse could it get? Right? That is the wrong way to think about it. Just don't be like me. We need to ask ourselves, if we're saying yes to something, what are we saying no to? Is that something that you guys struggle with? That awareness and being able to balance? Yeah, Janelle. Go ahead.
That's something that I've really been trying to work on, but I've also turned that into, if I'm saying yes to an opportunity, is that preventing the opportunity for someone else to say yes?
Yes.
So like if I say, sure, I'll run the nursery at church, but that's not my gifting, am I taking away an opportunity for someone else to use their giftings?
It's so true, especially in a church setting, right? In a church setting where you often see very clearly that 80-20, right? That Pareto principle where you have 20% of people doing 80% of the work, right? You have people who see the needs and you're like, they're right there and nobody's doing them. Well, if nobody's going to do them, somebody has to. I guess I'm somebody. It's so hard to step out of that thinking, right? It is so hard to step out of that thinking, especially when you're serving people and you know that if somebody doesn't step up to serve, oh, that's so hard. Anyone else? If I say yes to this, what am I saying? No?
I can 100% relate to you, Janelle, with not in a church aspect, but I used to run the SCC where I used to live as the chair, and trying to find help to do that was like trying to pull a nail out of a brick wall. So you're like, well, I guess I have to do it all because no one's going to step up to the plate and do it. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And Sherry comes in with the clinch. Maybe that other person is waiting to be picked. Oh, yep. So true. I think too, and I mean, this is going to get a little bit off course here, but I think too, oftentimes we really diminish, we as people in general, I'm not saying we on the screen, I'm saying we as people in general diminish our giftings and where we can be uniquely qualified for something. Because we think that it just isn't enough. Like Janelle said, oh, I could run the nursery at church. Well, where are the people who love babies and are really, really good with little kids who think that that isn't a gift? It is a gift. It is a huge gift because there are some people who should not do that because they're just not built for it. And it's okay because that person is maybe built for something different. But we look at our giftings and we go, oh, yeah. And I am totally guilty of this too. I am totally guilty of this. And it's really funny because God has given me a good laugh on this. I shared this with my worship team on, I guess it was Easter. It was getting ready for Easter. And I am, for those of you guys who don't know me, I am a worship leader and music is my thing. Singing is my thing. And I can get up in front of a lot of people and have no issue with it. And just, that is a gift that God has given me. And I'm very thankful for it. But I will diminish that because I'll think, but I can't go stand out on the street corner and evangelize. I can't go like start asking people at a restaurant and make a connection with them, with their hearts, and all of a sudden start praying for them. Like that kind of stuff. Chelsea Harder is one of those people that all of a sudden she meets somebody and she is like belly to belly with them and in the trenches within the first like 5 minutes. And you're like, how? Also very gifted musically too, but that is another one of her giftings, right? And I have used that comparison in my mind, and it's kind of been like lurking in the recesses of my mind. I actually didn't realize that it was really there. But I diminished my gift, being like, oh yeah, I can do that, but that's not a big deal because it comes easy to me and it's fine. That's not a big deal, right? When we compare our gifts with other people's, we diminish our own and the importance that has been given to us, because not everyone can do everyone else's gift the same way that they can. They can't. And even if it is a beautiful gift, like loving people well, or being a mother figure, or hospitality, those are huge giftings that people honestly really diminish, especially us as women, because we figure that we all just do it, right? If Sharon offers to cook for you, you go, yes, ma'am, and you show up early. Sherry said, in our area of gifting, we may consider it so easy that it's not significant. It's true. Yeah. Ellie said, to break myself of doing something out of obligation or an expectation of me, I began thinking it's better that nothing happens than if I step in and do it. Don't do for someone what they can do for themselves. Yeah. Enabling. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Darlene.
Hey, so I think I'm very guilty of comparing myself to other people and their gifts. Like you said, and it diminishes my own. And yesterday was actually kind of an eye-opening thing, because my dad and me have been doing a project together on my yard and our neighbor's yard. We've been installing sort of underground sprinkling system. And my dad is 86, by the way, and he can work almost as hard as I can.
Wow.
So that's amazing. But so I realized that, because he kind of said, you know, you're being a really good neighbor to your neighbors. And then I realized that is actually one of my gifts, is to be helpful to my neighbors. And many of them are Indo-Canadians. We even have some language barriers, and somehow we can make it through, you know, doing things together with our language barriers. And I said, you know, I just like you, Janelle, I am not one that will go out onto the street corners or even like just speaking my testimony to other people. The speaking part for me is just not my gift. And then I've felt guilty about that. And I think, oh, well, you know, as Christians, we're supposed to be sharing our testimonies with people and spreading the good news. But I'm realizing there's a lot of other ways to spread the good news too. And just by being a good neighbor is one of them. And I'm just a very practical, simple kind of a person. And sometimes I feel, even in our own life group, because we have many professors and teachers and, you know, business people. And I have been a stay-at-home mom who did house cleaning for a job. And if we want to make that sound a little bit more fancy, we could say a domestic engineer for others. And so to me, I sometimes just feel, oh, Darlene, you're just so regular compared to other people. And I think I just need to accept that I am going to be a different person than the next person. And mine will be, I will help you if you need help. Just ask me and I'll help you.
Yeah. That's amazing awareness. Absolutely. And Teresa says that she relates so much to what you're saying. I love that. Well, I would really encourage you guys to reflect on those giftings. I know that isn't exactly in the text, but I really do think that that's a good lesson. And choosing to do those things that do align with those purposes. And if we are not aware, right? And Darlene, I love your awareness, the fact that you are doing those good neighbor things for your neighbors who may not have those skills, and you are blessing them. Like, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. But being aware of what our success criteria is, but where we align with our values and then operating in those spaces is just so important. So the chapter takeaways are bottom of 50 and then top of 51 if you want to take a little perusal through there. But otherwise, we're going to wrap up. And next week, we will meet for the compound effect of the gap or gain. I hope you guys have a great weekend. See you.